Well, today I'm in Jamestown, Ohio at the Whip Artistry Studio with Gery Deer, a friend of mine. And, yeah. And first of all, what is whip artistry for people who might not know?
That's a really good question. I'm still trying to figure that out. So,
oh, okay.
Whip artistry is kind of an ongoing study. I can teach you, and I think I did, teach you how to crack a whip in just a couple of minutes, right? So,
although I never did get very good at it.
Well, that takes practice. That's different. So we will do that. Learn to crack a whip is one thing, and that's what we call whip cracking.
Okay.
But what separates it from whip artistry is the precision, is learning to do things that are really precise and doing like marksmanship with the whip or performing with it, something that turns it into something a little less random and a little more elegant. I think that, to me, is what it is. Everybody's got their own definition.
Okay, because I was totally in the dark too. And this really goes back, because what you said it's been since 2006.
Yeah, I think it's about 13 years.
That we've seen each other. We first met at an independent film convention called the Indie Gathering. And they put you right across from my table, and there's whips, and I see all kinds of, and I'm like...
Well, I had the videos running and everything.
Right, because he and his wife were on America's Got Talent.
We were on everything at that time.
And I just remember that one kind of repeating. What is this?
It's the only one anybody ever heard of.
Oh, okay. So I guess I just walked up and asked.
Yeah, we just started talking, and I had presentations that day, so I think you caught something we were doing at some point. So yeah, and then we just talked about it, and I think what's interesting about it for people mostly is that you don't see it every day. We see this stuff in movies, and what you see in movies is it's about half fake and half real, and most of that is because now, it's hard to get practical effects in a film anymore. Most people want to CGI the whip. They want just a dummy handle, and then they want the computer guys to do the rest. So guys like me don't have a lot of work anymore. There's only a few of us left.
But you do it at live shows still?
Yeah, we still do it live shows. We still train. I mean, theater companies and stuff still use us a lot. And the offhanded stunt coordinator who really likes practical effects, he wants his guys to know how to do what they do. They will send their people out here, and we'll train them and send them back to wherever they're going to go.
Okay, so like, what's the advantage of it coming to you? And like not just going on YouTube and finding an instruction video?
That's a big question. So I'm going to alienate a lot of my friends. I don't like the videos. I think it's fine as a starting point, but there's a time at which you really need to get that feedback that you have from a live teacher. Someone that can look at what you're doing, evaluate it, and go, well, you're turning your hand this way, or maybe don't stand so stiff, or whatever that happens to be. To get that feedback and really make it work better. And if you have a video, it's very one-dimensional. You don't have any of that, and the person's not talking to you. And I've had people ask me if I would do remote lessons and things like that where we do videos, and I've done that a little bit where people can send me a video of what they're doing, and I can say, well, it looks to me like, but this studio is set up, and you'll see more of it in a little while, I guess, but this is more of an open space where I can walk around you and see what's going on. Because whip cracking, whip handling at all is very geometrical. It's three-dimensional, sometimes four-dimensional. And you have to be able to handle all of those things at one time. And if you're just watching a video, you can't really get all that. That's tough.
And how many people actually are interested in this and they come out and take lessons?
Well, it varies every year, but we have somewhere between 100 and 125 a year that come through.
Oh, okay.
And that's counting outside, not just in the building, but when we go out and teach somewhere else as well. So we have outreach programs, and that goes to schools, churches, kids groups, 4-H, stuff like that.
And it's more curiosity, learning a lot with those, with like schools?
Yeah, a lot of times it's science teachers.
Oh, okay.
They want us to, they want to teach the physics of the whip and see how it works. Okay. And we have a lot more video and proof now that you're actually breaking the sound barrier than we had before.
Oh, that's cool. Now see, you know what, I think you probably did mention that to me because it sounds familiar, and then I'm like,
if you want to, this gives you a good idea. So hold on to that handle over there. This is a whip. That's what we're doing here.
Yes.
You know what, this is probably easier to see. Let's use a white one. What do you think of that? This is a one-of-a-kind, folks.
Oh, awesome.
I had this commissioned because I do a lot of stage shows, and I'm in a tuxedo against a black wall. So in order to be able to see it correctly, get this out of the way.
That looks a little smaller.
It's a little smaller. It's about 5.5 feet, and it is made out of white kangaroo hide. And it's got black and blue knots. Paul Nolan of Midwest Whips made it for me. It's got a very specific taper. The insides are made the way I asked for. It's very specifically done for my work. But here's the important part. So you're holding the whip like this, and you give it a throw. And what happens is, we're going to just turn it upside down for a second. So it makes this little loop, and that loop continues like this. It barrel rolls all the way down. And as it's going, it's pulling this thing along behind it. When it gets way out there, right about here, this whole thing is getting smaller. So when you put a little energy behind that, the energy is moving faster and faster. It makes the whip go faster. When it gets right about there, something like that, it actually hits 768 miles an hour. And at that moment, there's a big vacuum behind it because the air can't keep up and fill in the hole. So when that happens, that vacuum suddenly gets filled in a hurry. That's called a sonic boom. You broke the sound barrier.
Awesome.
That's what happens when an airplane does it. It creates a huge vacuum and all the air crushing in and the filled out void. That's how the whip cracks. Okay. This doesn't matter. This is called a popper. This has parts. We won't go into that right now, but this is called a popper. It's what everybody sees at the end of the whip. Everyone thinks this is what makes the noise, but it's not. It actually works like an amplifier. If we take this off, the whip will still crack, but it'll be very, very dull. You won't be able to hear it real well. And this opens up like a big speaker. And it lets all the sound waves bounce off the walls and everywhere else, so it's nice and loud and you'll hear it naturally. So that gives you an idea how it works.
Oh.
No batteries required. It's
No
always in 3D in high definition.
Awesome. No, I mean, that sounds like, it sounds like it's a more interesting presentation for that, for the science class than some of the things I said.
What? Yeah, I know. We didn't.
I mean, they didn't do anything like that. So what was interesting, again, about Indie Gathering, I don't even know what made me fascinated, and I don't know if you remember my first question or not.
I think it's the same question everybody else asks. So what do you do with this?
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's an important question because there's a lot of crazy stuff out there, right. And most people's exposure to a whip is either through cowboy something, westerns, or something like that, or Zorro, or Indiana Jones. That's the majority of it. Because we see it in the media. And if it's not that, then you go all the way back to what I call dark media, where you have people using it in things like Roots and something like it. And a bullwhip is used incorrectly in those films. Right,
I was going to ask, because that's something we did talk about, which is a lot of times they're using it incorrectly and people get the wrong idea of
that shouldn't have been a bullwhip. Yeah, that's not what they... I mean, obviously anybody will misuse something. It's like a baseball bat is not a weapon until you beat somebody to death with it.
Right.
So it's kind of the same mentality. A bullwhip is really not intended to strike animals or people or anything else. It's meant to make a noise. You train animals using that sound. You don't touch them with it.
Right.
I would assume back then people were the same way, but I think people are a little more difficult to train than animals are. So I don't know how that worked. But what you see in the films typically is incorrect. Most of the time they use something called a flog, or a cat o' nine tails is what it's commonly called. But it looks like this, but it may have 25 or 30 of these at the end. And when that happens, it cannot break the sound barrier, which means all of that energy that it lets go of when it cracks is all there when it strikes you. So that's why those are dangerous. And I have a sample of that back there, but I think you get the idea. Okay. The single strand bullwhips were not used that way.
Right. Okay.
Typically.
So, yeah. So was my interest, I guess, was that common?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know, if I was coming into it and all of a sudden having this interest.
How come you didn't know? I mean, come on. Didn't you know this is what people did with this? No, of course not. It's normal.
No.
That's absolutely normal.
Yeah.
What I find out typically is that we get a lot of different kinds of people who are interested. We get hobbyists. That's what I call the person who's just interested and thinks it's cool. Let's try that. It's neat. Then I've got a sort of professional performer who's a magician or is a sideshow guy or a knife thrower or something, and they want to add the whip to their show.
Okay.
So they learn it for that. Then you have the whip performer who's actually trying to go out there and be a whip artist and do it for money. And kind of like what I do is do shows and performances and then get used to help people learn it and all that. And then you have kind of a mixture of everybody after that. It's all over the place. So you could just be interested in it because it's cool. You could be interested in it because it has a very gratifying piece to it that I don't think exists in a lot of other Western arts. And when I say Western arts, I'm talking about trick roping and gun spinning and knife throwing. When the whip cracks, that does something to you. I don't know how to explain that, but there's a feeling of satisfaction. You get it to work.
And kind of for me, and this is what surprised me about myself, because if somebody told me, let's go bungee jumping, I'd say you are out of your mind. Okay, bungee jumpers, do not contact me, please.
Right, she's apparently not up for that.
I'm not up, no.
Me either, I'm good.
And what I'm saying, no, I mean, if that's what you enjoy, fine, but I'm just saying that's not me. If somebody said, let's go, forget it. And all of a sudden, I found myself saying, oh,
I
want to do that. Can I try that? And the next thing I knew, there I was with a straw in my mouth.
You held the flower, and we did the wrapping, and we'll demonstrate that stuff. But yeah, you just jumped right into that.
Yeah, and somebody took a Polaroid picture. Remember Polaroid cameras, people?
Oh
and it came out pretty good.
Yeah, it looks neat.
And what's great is I've posted it a couple times, and sure enough, people comment, "Are you out of your mind?"
There was one in the ballroom too, wasn't there? Wasn't there like when we did the show or something like that? I did a rap or something right there too. And then we were out in the hallway.
Well, we did.
Was it a different time?
That was a different one because at Starbase Indy, you had me come and help as one of your crew.
Because we were in that got it. Right.
And I remember because I was kind of used in the show is that anybody can do this.
I'm so old. I don't remember things.
And you remember a lot more than me, and it was a lot. And I just remember I was just like, oh, cool, I get to do this again.
Well,
and there's still pictures of that.
And
because you're braver than me.
People get crazy because you would think that this is something that would be very off-putting to people because it is dangerous. I mean, I'm not going to soften that by saying that they misuse it in movies. Doesn't mean you can't hurt somebody.
Right.
Because you really can.
You can.
And most of the time, the person that gets hurt is the guy on the handle.
Oh.
It's rarely the person out there because they're not good enough to get to that person. They're usually going to pick it up and do it the wrong way and end up
wrap their
smacking
own
their face,
heads,
wrap their head, whatever. So what we try to do is really take that random thing away and teach them the right way. Like everybody, first thing they want to do is try to flip it like a towel. And it doesn't work like that. And it doesn't come back to you like people pick it up and they go like this and it spins back at you. It's a little bit crazy. So we try not to do that. But you know, when you say it's kind of extreme, I've never found it that extreme. I've always thought it was something that was actually very calming because it takes very little effort. This is not something that requires brute strength. I'm not a big guy. I mean, you don't need any of that.
Well, I guess I didn't want to say extreme per se, but...
Well, some people think it is.
Okay, but like for me, one of those things that seems daring.
Right.
And I don't tend to do daring things.
Okay.
And
not going to learn high falls and zip lines and all that stuff.
And so when I found myself asking about that, part of me was like, what the heck am I doing?
Why did you suddenly get all interested?
Right, I couldn't quite figure that out. But it was, for me, I called it a high. I kind of figured out what people get out of those other things, not that I necessarily want to try them. So we are actually going to demonstrate some of that for you. And what is it we're going to do?
Well, we're going to do a couple of different things. So I'm just going to show you how it cracks. We'll do a little bit of that so you can kind of get a feel for that. And then we will do a little bit of targeting, which is what everybody wants to see. That's where you cut the flower and you cut the flower out of the mouth. I'll do some out of my own hand so they can see how that works. And then we'll do some things with you.
Okay.
We'll mix it up a little bit. I don't know what we're going to do. We'll make it up as we go.
We'll do that. I'm going to get my hair away. I'm going to tell people do not try to do any of this at home. If you want to learn it,
you will have all of our contact information.
Absolutely.
So whipstudio.com. It's the easiest way to find us.
Okay. So.
All set?
All set.
Okay, well, we're going to move out there so we've got some space. And we're going to start with, let's see. Let's get crazy on this one. So I'm going to use a little bit of a smaller whip for this. And the reason being, let me have my back to you there, sorry. The reason being, when you first get started with something, you want to make sure they can see it. This one's got a little bit of a white tint to it, so in this room it's a lot easier to see. So we'll just show you the crack. Just to mess with our cameraman. Okay. Yeah. You're miles away, don't worry. So we got that. But that's just how it cracks. So we learn a bunch of different things, a bunch of cracks like these. There's a lot more that we can do, but it gives you the basic idea. And then eventually you're going to want to learn to hit a target. And the way you do that is not put somebody out there and hold it for you right away. That's kind of a common mistake. We actually hold it for ourselves to begin with. So this is a piece of styrofoam. We use these because it won't damage the whip. And lots of other things will, fruit, flowers, people use all sorts of stuff. But this one right here is roughly $600. I have no interest in having to repair it. So here we go. This gives you a good idea. Pieces. If you notice that cut twice, I don't know if you can see that or not. But that's all we do. We also, let me grab one, do this again. Make sure you can see this. Because we can turn sideways like this. We go behind the back so you can see that. That way as well. Now, as you get a little bit braver, now I don't have a blindfold today, but you're gonna have to trust me to close my eyes, all right?
Oh, okay.
So I'm gonna do this out of my mouth with my eyes shut. Let me go this way, so you can see the whole thing. I'm gonna go like this. That's all there is to it. Okay? So, simple, right? You're gonna help me with one of these, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. It's been a long time.
It's been a long time, so I'm going to put you right here. We want them to see it up close and personal. So let's go like this. Turn this way. I'm just going to shift you around. Hold that.
Uh-huh.
And hold it up a little bit. Lean forward. There you go.
Mm-hmm.
And
Oh.
stable. Ready?
Mm-hmm.
You good? All right. Out just a little further. Down. There we go. 1, 2. Ta-da! There you go. And you do the little flourish the Target girls always do. And then, just for fun, we're going to do 2 at a time. So we're going to turn this way for this one. Let's come back here so he's got plenty of space. Stand right there. Turn and face the camera. Don't need that. Pitch that. Go this way. Face them. They want to see you.
Oh,
Like
they
this.
do?
Yes, stand up straight. Hold this out like that.
Oh.
Good, there we go, there you go. And I'm going to do both of these at the same time.
Oh.
So I'm going to crack it a couple times. Here we go. Nothing to it. That's all there is. And if you really get crazy, you can come here. Do not move. Okay. Ta-da!
Ta-da.
Now, something that you asked about was one thing we did before, which was the body wraps.
The body
So I need to explain this before we do it. So in the movies, when a stunt coordinator calls and they need someone to teach an actor how to do something, typically what happens is they ask them to teach them one thing. So all they may be doing is this at the camera. Harrison Ford, for example, took some lessons and actually got pretty good with it, but never really had to do anything big with it throughout the whole movie. They didn't have to really be that proficient at it. They just need to make it look believable. So that's typically how it works with movies. He was a little more involved in it than most people are, because usually it's come in, do it, shoot, get out, right? It's any other stunt. But sometimes you also have to make the whip look more dangerous than it really is, and also make it look dangerous to the people watching without hurting the guy on the other end.
Right.
So if you're going to do that, you use something called a body wrap. Now, I'm not sure where we're going to stage. I think we'll do this back here. So I'm going to put you right there. I think this was how we did it before. And I'm going to come back here a little ways because I need a lot of space for this. Can you give you a minute to move? Are you okay where you are?
I'm all right.
All right, so here's what we're going to do. I'm going to crack the whip. It's going to come way over there, and it's going to just wrap around your legs first, okay? Just like that. Yep. And we'll go around the waist. Do one more around the waist just for giggles. And because I'm kind of in my groove now, so I'm all warmed up, so we do it, a dozen times per minute. So with a trained assistant, I actually go all the way up to the neck, and then eventually holding something on top of the head, holding the arms out sideways. There's a whole little routine that goes with that. So it's all about, that requires training the person to be able to do it. So it's a little bit different.
Okay, so again, if somebody is interested, they can contact you.
Oh, you can go online, the Whip Artistry Studio, and there are tons of videos out there that show you a lot of different things. TheWhipStudio.com is the easiest way to find us. And if you just Google my name and Bullwhip, you're going to find it.
Okay, well, thanks. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
so
good.
glad to come out today.
It's really fun. I'll hold that for you.
Thank you. And we'll see you next time from somewhere.
Thanks.